learning curve, and you didn't think there was going to be such a big one, you know, best practices, and, you know, you're just HR is HR, but the cultural thing. And he pointed it out nicely to me one day. He goes, Caroline, he goes, since you're from America, you're overthinking everything, right?
I overthink.
And that is so true, you know, because we have, in America, you have the legal system.
Yeah.
So every decision you make, you're going to be sued for.
Right. So
when it comes to HR,
possible. Yeah.
And so you just don't make any decisions, and you have to sit down and you have to think it out and so forth. Here, they just do it. Whatever concept comes to their mind, do it, implement it. I want it done within the hour. And you're like, you know, and that includes, you know, firing. You know, an employee, you know, if they say the wrong thing to the wrong manager or they show some attitude, they'll be gone, right? And there'll be no history of
what happened.
Yeah, progressive discipline or any warnings.
Right.
You know, and yes, there's a little bit of UAE law that says, you know, you could go to court for arbitrary dismissal and you'll get your 3 months. And let's be honest, nobody does that. You know, 1 in 10,000 maybe.
Yeah. And it's not that protective of the employee anyway. Like you've seen that there are loopholes around the whole
Absolutely.
deal. Like I've studied the law. Like, okay, that's very interesting because there's different laws for the public sector, for the private sector, for domestic, the locals, the domestic. It's completely different. Again, what are the views of locals on, because there is a lot of localization initiatives and things like that. Do they work? Do they not work? What can we feed back in terms of, no, I'm not going to go directly to what? And say, you guys are doing this wrong. No, I'm not doing that. But if we understand this better, because there's like research shows that there are people who are on a fake payroll sometimes because they're local, and and you're like, you're nodding, but you know, and
this is on, so
well, no one's gonna know. But this actually tells you. I'm not saying this. Research says this, you know. Very, very interesting. I mean, have a read through if you want.
I surely will. I mean, because last year there was some new construction regulations that you had to have so many locals for a construction company based on a certain size, right? So they gave out all the list of people that are looking for work, right, that would meet those criteria.
Right.
And we called every single one. Nobody showed for an interview. Nobody would pick up their phone. No, I mean, the list was... Right?
Yeah, you get to hear all this. And the funny thing is, it's not just hearsay. It's actually, you know, happening and things like that. So it's very interesting. Again, like, this doesn't come down to ASGC or, you know, your policies are flawed or anything like that. It's not, you know, attacking. We're trying to see what we can do to make things better, make things work.
Right.
I think that's more important sometimes. Better or not, it's working. Yeah, some people have talked about inequalities and they say, you know what, this works.
Yeah.
I've always said. And I'm like, okay, that's very interesting. So I get a lot of interesting thoughts on issues, on ideas, and I'm just like, wait, in a model world that would be wrong. But the way this person makes it sound, it is right.
They're really good at selling. Marketing over here and how you present things is far above what you get in the West. You know, the West is, here's the policy. Here there's a negotiation for everything. And you're like, that's not a negotiation. My policy is not a negotiation.
Absolutely. Again, we'll see how it emerges. There are some points that you've said. How did you like these questions? These are
those are good. I would also then be interested in how the staff views the terminations, right? Because as a construction company, we have ebbs and flows. Sure.
We had that come up over there as well.
You know, do they think it's management really looking at performance, or is it more arbitrary?
Okay.
Yeah.
But what about the industry? Because this is what I got from the previous company because it's the same industry.
Mhm.
It was for them. It was more project based, and obviously it should be the same here
Mhm.
as well. And it all comes down to the cost benefit analysis about how much do we need.
Right.
So they obviously had a lot of redundancies and layoffs and things like that as well. So yeah, I think that's an industry issue.
And
generally as
do the
well.
employees understand that if you're going to work in
Okay.
construction, that they're always going to have to be marketing themselves to be the best within their section. So when projects end, and if we don't have something coming up, are you the superstar, right?
Yeah, that's a big one. That kind of just came in through with all the other stuff, when we talked about performance and appraisals and so I had some performance and appraisal things as well. And also what, according to you, are some of the factors that could hinder your growth and development within the organization. So that also gets them talking about whatever is going on in their head.
Right.
So maybe we could, I think those kind of questions kind of answer job insecurity and,
right.
It's, a lot of them said, it's me, I am not in the right space in terms of, where I am in my life right now. Personal issues, whatever.
Yeah, we all have.
We all have that. Right, exactly. But it's good to see if the employee takes accountability for their personal growth,
Sure.
or is it the organization? So that could,
right.
you know what I mean? So it's like it could go both ways. So when I asked this question, I also informed them that I'm asking, is it your personal barriers, or do you think they are organizational barriers?
Right. Do you expect me as HR to come to you and say,
exactly.
there's this, or what have you done in the last?
Yeah. So they have something called a self-driven progression ideology, where the employee asks for a promotion, they go through the process, and then they get it. A lot of them said that my culture and where I come from, I don't ask for things.
Yes. If you think I'm doing good,
you tell me, and you validate that, right? And that was very interesting. That was a point that came across. So, our conversation today is mainly about, we have these practices and we have these policies, but what is the thought process behind it?
Sure.
And what do you think about that? Like, what's your feedback on what research this is about?
I've also found in the UAE, it's a polite culture. And what I mean by that is when I go back home and people ask what's the work like, I said it's actually easier over there because you don't have all the rules and regulations and the employee protections as you have in America. Therefore, I can just say, this is the way it is, and you're hired, you're fired, you're this and that. However, what I dislike over here is that you have to sell it. So if I'm going to sit with an employee and terminate them, it's still a negotiation, right? It seems like, okay, this decision's been made, and they don't accept that. And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go back and talk to my manager. And I'm like, okay, and you're welcome to do that. I'm implementing what has already been discussed. And then sometimes the manager will call back, and it's never as clear. Or somebody will call, come and see me, and we work every other Saturday, right? We're in construction. There is nothing I can do about that. There is no exceptions across the board. Somebody will always come and ask, and I'm like, I'm sorry, the policy is very clear, no exceptions, even the CEO is here. Okay, but Caroline, I still want you to take it to the HR director and just discuss it. Old Caroline a year and a half ago was like, no means no. Now it's like, okay, I'd be happy to take your concern to them. I'll pretend to, right? And when I go back and tell them no, and they're like, well, thank you for at least considering it.
Right.
It doubles the work over here.
Right.
The niceness, or there's not a term for it. You can say no in America. You can't say no here.
Right. There's always an expectation that you're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
Or
you'll at least consider it.
Yeah. But that's nice. It's nice that that's a cultural change for you.
Yes.
That's a culture change for you.
Yep.
And you might not like it.
I know when I go back home, I'll be telling everybody, let me consider it. And they're like, she's going to do it.
You're absolutely right with that one. I have my students, right? They keep asking me for recommendation letters because they want to transfer to another university or whatever. And during summer, I'm technically off because I work part-time. I'm not a full-time faculty at the university. So I tell them that, listen, I'm not on campus. I have to go through. I don't even have the letterheads. I have to go to a department, get it printed, stamp, sign, then keep it ready. And if I'm not going to university, I'm doing field work during the summer. So I just tell them that I'm sorry, if I was there on campus, I would do it for you, but I am not. So why don't you approach a full-time faculty who's there, and they'll do it for you.
Okay.
No response to the official email request.
Facebook.
I'm desperate, Miss.
Oh yeah. What's up?
I'm like, yeah. I don't know. Stop talking maybe. But I get what you mean. Like it's just like I just gave you a proper answer on email, and that's the formal lines of communication.
Yeah.
I'm not entitled or obliged to do that on Facebook.
And then they'll keep going up the thing. So if I say no, then they'll go to Miss Miriam. Miss Miriam will kick it back to me, and I'll call them back and say, okay, she has received your message, and the answer is firm. And then they'll try to go to the father, right? And then he'll get involved, and then you're trying to explain to him, and he's like, are you sure you can't? And the few times that they make the exception, the word gets out. Right? If you can make it to the father which is fine, it's their company. And I always tell people, it's no hurt feelings on my behalf, right? But the system then makes it harder for everyone because they don't know who actually has the authority.
Correct.
And when it ends, and you don't see that, back home.
Okay, so I think so on those bases, lines of communication.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Maybe does authority end at managers or
authority? Yeah. How do they view authority and the system really? Because it seems like what about the system? Like there has to be rules that have to be followed. How do you view rules? Maybe, that could be.
Are they negotiable, or is there a set standard?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. With the psychology-based questions, and I can do a career experiences interview with you as well, because then you're just treated like any other employee, but you are an employee. But also you have a lot of experience in the UAE, things like that, so like a background of how your experiences have been. You've already kind of discussed some, so we could dig in deeper. So maybe we could have another interview with you.
That'd be fine.
At some
So I think with that one, favoritism.
Okay.
Do they feel like the culture here? How big is that an issue?
Okay.
I think management would be very interested.
Okay.
Because this past year, most of the department heads have been with us 15, 20 years, and the company is 30 years old, right? So those directors started off as engineers with the father as they built the company. As we're now at this level, those managers were getting ready to retire, but they didn't have the experience necessary to take us to this step. Right? They don't have the technology base. Their background in education was only as good as the things that they learned
at that time.
Back when we had 200 employees, and now we have 16,000.
Yeah.
It's a completely different group, right? So now we needed younger, different experienced managers. So there was a strategic thing done last year that the CEO sat with probably half of those directors and more or less asked them to retire early. So that was a big culture thing, and it kind of happened in one big wave, and I know the employees were like, you just took out the senior group and people that they were very passionate about, and then we've brought in all these Westerners, So our Chief Information Officer is from Austria,
Okay.
Our new CFO is from Denmark.
Okay.
You know, we had a new safety director from South Africa. You know, so we.
So basically, you're bringing in talent from. Oh, this is going to be really
Right.
interesting because
We're
we changed senior management team and brought in a lot of cultural.
Right.
Like
Because the
differences.
family is
Yeah.
Egyptian, all of the directors were Egyptian.
Right.
And they didn't want to be known as the Egyptian company, which is what our kind of nickname in the market is. And we all have
Al
your...
Shafar Group. Yeah.
Actually, she's like, I already...
I have my PhD colleagues who are who are doing their thing in Eid and you know the engineering and you know they're in Aegis, which is the engineering school, civil engineering school.
Mm-hmm.
So I said ASGC and said yes, Al Shafar Group, the Egyptian. Like,
exactly.
yeah.
And when I hired on, you know, when I was doing research, I came from Azizi Developments, so the property.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to my engineering team, and I was asking them, I said, what do you guys know? And they're like, oh, they're great, you know, they're Egyptian, this and that. Of course, that team is also Egyptian. I'm like, okay, right.
I know what you mean.
And a lot of my American friends that were here, when I told them it was an Egyptian family-owned company, they warned me, don't come. They said that the culture is going to be too closed and you'll never get anywhere and they'll just be backstabbing and this and that. And I have not found that at all. It's possible it's more like that on the job sites. I'm not going to say that it doesn't.
Right.
But I can get done whatever I need to get done with no issues. And maybe it's because of the American and I'm the only one and I'm like a novelty.
Yeah, that could be another way of looking at it. Sometimes you just like, maybe I don't fit in the equation, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just left out. It happens in a lot of places where I've discussed this with people and they're like, yeah, you know, actually, I've heard that there's like politicking and you know all of these other things going on, but luckily I've never like you know that I've not been caught in the crossfire.
Right.
So that happens as well. Like it might be, but we don't know. But again, that's come into the culture question.
Yeah,
well,
the
know,
nationality
how
of
people-
managers, because I've heard
Nationality.
the one before me was Indian.
Okay.
And so the Indians of the company loved her, and the Egyptians thought she was very difficult to work with.
Oh, right.
You know, and I've heard that from numerous sources. They're like, you know, if you would come to her from this side, you know, nothing got approved. If you came to her from this side, and I don't have any stereotypes of anything,
Yeah.
because I've never worked with any of the nationalities, so nobody knows how to
Exactly.
treat me, including my own team. It feels like at times, you know, because they're like, you know, we can't get the advantage.
We can't. You don't understand how the hiring process.
Okay.
How does the hiring process work in ASGC?
Although we purchased a automated system last year that department heads can go in and put in requests and they will flow to HR, it's still very informal, in that Matthew will just get an email or a phone call, or Miss Miriam will say, do this, right? And so he just kind of tracks them. He doesn't typically even have like a spreadsheet for all of the open positions. He is their only recruiter.
Okay.
So he just kind of keeps it,
Oh, wow.
for the most part,
Okay.
you know, in his head. That's his style, and you're not going to get him to change it until we force him.
Yeah.
And then it's just, the department can give the qualifications of specifically what they're looking for. We really don't go back to the job description and say you have to have this.
Right.
Although, you know, if you want an engineer title, you're going to have a certification 95% of the time.
Yeah.
Right? And Matthew will start calling candidates. We don't place any job ads. He just goes out to the job boards, LinkedIn, pulls CVs, cold calls them, asks them if they'd like to come in to interview. He'll set them up. Once they kind of express interest, then he'll send the CVs typically to the hiring managers, and it depends, you know, whether the cart or the horse comes first with that. The junior positions, he knows what they want. He'll just schedule the interviews.
Right.
Sometimes they'll meet the HR director first, sometimes they'll do that after the technical interview.
Okay.
But it is a two-stage process.
Right.
The technical interview, and then you have to meet the HR director just to make sure that they're going to fit kind of the ASGC
values and
image that we
image,
want,
yeah.
right? What's unique really then within the company is Matthew isn't interviewing, right? He is sourcing.
Right.
He'll ask
headhunting.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, he'll ask a couple questions on the phone, you know, what's your
Right.
experience, what size buildings, but he
Mhm.
doesn't do the technical interview, which is something I find different.
Okay.
But it works for us, so there's no reason right now to change that.
I think in terms of the hiring, because they're the subject experts, the
Mhm.
department heads,
Correct.
going to the hiring manager is usually, I think, the trend here in the UAE.
Yeah.
That's what I feel, but is it different in the US?
Yep.
How is it different? Because obviously my work goes into international HRM as
Yeah.
well. So that's
When I
interesting.
worked for Farmers Insurance, big call center, for the people that, when you had a auto, fire, whatever claim, the first people you would get on the phone, right? They take all of your information. So
Right.
they're mid-level. You have to have a bachelor's degree to get those positions,
Okay.
right? The department head would never meet them. HR would do the interview. We had very structured questions. We'd give them a point rating system, and then we would fill a recruitment class. And those 25 people would show up on this day and do, you know, a 3-month program, and then be assigned to this supervisor. I mean,
Very different.
yeah, HR had full control over who came into the company,
Wow.
which that was a unique position for me. That was the first time I'd ever just, you know, made or break it. And I started working with the supervisors, though. I said, don't you guys, like, want to be involved? And they're like, yeah, but HR, like, doesn't let us. I said, well, for mine, let's partner, right? Let's, you know, once I meet somebody, maybe a 5-minute with you, and because I'm determining who's going to be on your team. And that's not fair either.
It isn't, because, you know, people have different ways of working and styles of working, and, you know, sometimes it's just communication and wavelength that
Mhm.
matters, right? Like, sometimes yours might be different from the supervisor's.
Sure.
So that's very, very interesting.
Mhm.
I think that this model would work. Does it work?
You know, I think it depends on the industry.
Yeah.
I think that our teams would like HR to screen a little bit more, but then they have to really be willing to share with us what it is that they're looking for.
Right.
Right? I think that they still like that control, so they have to see the value of it. And selling them on the value would take some time.
Right. Do you think any kind of inequalities might come into play when it comes to leaving the decisions with HR? With HR or with the hiring manager? It could go either way. Like in your previous jobs, and
Mhm.
what you would assume that could possibly happen.
I think right now, I mean, since Miss Miriam meets all of them, there's still difficulties because if technically they're sound and the department likes them and she just doesn't
like their personality or
or the way that they dressed or
Right.
something that they said, they're not going to get through, which is too bad because, you know, she will never work with them, right? And if they can do the job and they're out there on the job site, you know, who are we to say?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So there are some biases that might arise because
Mhm.
of different people involved and jobs.
You're right.
Jobs that take place. Right. Okay. When you look at approvals, what kind of approvals do you go through typically on the basis of budgets when you are hiring?
We don't have manpower budgets or...
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Nope, we don't really have... We don't have formal salary ranges.
Okay.
You know, we just look at, you know, we have it sorted in our system. I can tell you for PEs, you know, typically what we pay. Really, we'll look at what the candidate was making, and in the UA style, you know, we'll give them another 500 dirhams or 1,000 to get them from their other company, but we don't pay based on skill and ability. You know, it's still that, what can we squeeze?
Right.
If we're going to be honest about it, because who wants to overpay?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we were discussing as well. When it comes to the pay standards, some people are setting the standards themselves, whether it's ethnicities or whether it's, you know.
Sure.
And then obviously the companies will go to, if I'm paying an Indian for 6,000 dirhams, and I have another one with the same qualifications, same abilities, same skill set, and they're ready to work at 4,000, then obviously the company would go for that.
Right. The competitiveness in this job market makes the salary ranges
exactly non-standardized.
Yes, and you wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
bring any type of structure because it is what has made Dubai successful.
True.
Is the cheap labor.
True.
Otherwise,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you couldn't have done all of this.
Absolutely.
Right. So you can't thumb your nose at it because the people that are
Exactly,
here, they
yeah.
like their free laundry service and their cheap takeout and all that. You won't get that in America.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Right?
true. And then taxes.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Maids,
But-
nannies, all of that.
The comfort and safety that
Mhm.
comes around with that. Very, very true. Just like how we were discussing yesterday, some models, they might not seem morally or ethically correct
Mhm.
or right in a more equal, because you come from an equal employment opportunities place, right? Like I don't, but
You've heard of them, right?
That is
That golden.
Yes, exactly.
They really just pay, but at the same time,
At the same time, what model works here, right? And that's
Yeah.
why, and that's precisely why my study looks at a more divergent
Mhm.
trend, not a convergent, that we can't just pick up policies. And another thing that you told me very interesting when we were going out to park my car was that you would never be able to work in an American company, and you're glad that you're
Yeah.
in this space.
Mhm.
So tell me more about that. I was like, yeah, save this for the interview.
Okay. Well, and even when you're talking pay scales, back in America, even when you're going to have those ranges,
Mhm.
women are still going to get paid less. So it is not
Yeah.
to say that these are any better, because there are, and I've seen it in all of my jobs too. If there was a male, being in HR, you can always see the salaries,
Yeah,
right? And the first
yeah.
thing an HR person does when they get into the role is they look up who the previous incumbent was and what were they paid.
Right?
Right.
Absolutely. It's just.
In my last construction company, I was paid at least 40% less than the male who left my same role.
The gender pay gap in the West is a
Mhm.
huge issue. It is there that, the glass ceiling
Mhm.
and the gender pay gap.
Right.
So that research has proven
Yeah.
that it's there. Yes. So when you say last company, was that here?
No, that was last
Yeah.
construction company in America.
In America.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Huge. And usually we hear about the UK, but in America as well.
Mhm. Yep. And it was just, as a male-oriented company.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, I was there for almost 3 years, and all of my reviews, and everybody said, you're the best HR we've ever had. The CEO would put that on there, and you're going,
Yeah, you feel
Yeah.
there are feelings of inequality,
Mhm.
that you just like, how am I protected? And then over there you have the unions as well. You have a lot of employee protection and rights and all
Right.
of that, which we don't have here. But at the same time, the with all the inequalities, I feel like there is more satisfaction here
Mhm.
either way, which is really interesting. That is one of the most interesting things that has come out in my research. At
Mhm.
least I feel that it is quite interesting. Now,
Right.
just like how you said,
Mhm.
like people want the luxury of
Yeah.
doing these things.
UAE
Able
has to
do
be
that.
better, otherwise you'd be back in your home country.
Home country.
Right?
Yeah,
There has
yeah.
to be, either there is job opportunity where there is none, or
True.
style of living, or a little bit of both.
Lifestyle.
Right,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
you wouldn't be away from your family for nothing.
For nothing.
Right.
Very true. Very true.
But-
But it's the other way around when
Mhm.
it comes to some other countries, like developing countries.
Sure.
Isn't it? They wouldn't. So when you think about it from that point of view,
Mhm.
they're ready to put up with inequalities here for the standard of living.
Yeah.
Because going back home would mean a lower standard of living,
Mhm.
lower pay, everything
And it
else.
looks very prestigious. I mean,
Yeah.
we like to go to the Ibn Battuta Mall
Mhm.
quite often, right?
Mhm.
And since the labor camps are over there, you see a lot of that clientele too.
Right.
And I love watching the workers, take the selfies in the big malls, and
Yeah.
they're sending those back home.
Home.
It's, imagine being back home and seeing your son or your cousin being here.
Absolutely. That changes the whole,
Mhm.
from a negative to a positive perspective.
Right.
Right? And like I said, because it goes into my research, goes into organizational behavior, business psychology. It looks at what people's frame of minds are,
Mhm.
and is that negative for them or positive? I've got a mixed reaction depending on how much people had to lose in terms of that's human nature, isn't it? But that was interesting.
If you go out to like some of my very, very junior office staff, I'm not Facebook friends with them, but I found always being in HR, I like to, you click on one person, right, and you can start seeing other people.
Yeah.
How excited they are to work in the UAE and in their office and in their uniform, and you just see these really amazing posts, and you're like, wow. Now Facebook is not always real, but they're still very proud of their accomplishments.
Yeah. It's really nice to see that diversity that comes through when you look at work here, and that's one of the things that makes research so difficult here, is because you're constantly thinking of, okay, what else can we tap? Because there's so much diversity. So that's great. When you look at the gender pay gap, do you think that exists in this part of the world?
I haven't seen the gender as much versus nationality.
Yes, I think pay gap everyone has confirmed that exists.
I think there's less opportunities for women in a lot of industries here.
Yes.
Unless you want to work in restaurants or the front desk, or, the tea girls, they're not considered as strong in management or in the senior positions.
So the glass ceiling is still there.
It is, and then on the flip side, because family is so important to these nationalities, the majority of them are going to have numerous children and continue to go out on maternity leave. I'm struggling with that with the front desk right now. I mean, I swear, she's been here less than a year, so maybe within month 4 or maybe right after probation, she was pregnant, right? And not that I would have fired her, but I would not have offered her the position because you were the front desk, right? I can't outsource your work. I need a body there.
Correct.
Right. And then what do? I mean,
you can't work from home with that.
And finding temporary help is very hard here. They don't have the staffing companies. I can't call. They have some, but it's not set up as nice. So if you want somebody to work for you, you have to sponsor them on a visa. Right? It's a huge process. I can't just call and get a college kid.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. I have someone who could fit in.
Oh, fantastic.
She was in call center work. We'll talk about that later.
But so I think females will have that issue. If you're going to be in with that childbearing age, it will be the thing that we wonder. Right? And so that's why it's already written on the CV, how many kids do you have, what marriage, what nationality, and, I make it very clear in my interviews, too, I'm married, kids are out of the house, I'm here.
That is one of the biggest reasons, and because of family and culture, that a lot of people justify the glass ceiling. Women themselves have said that, listen, I don't want to take up additional responsibility and I can't stay at work for so long because I have to go. This is an Indian American woman that has told me this, that I have to go back to my baby, and I can do so much, and this is the company that has given them all the work from home benefits. As well. They have the whole system set up at their homes and everything. That they've gone that far. But imagine if it's coming from the women themselves, then I think about the same thing. Like, I'm doing my PhD today, right? And I've done all of this work, and then in the future I'm gonna have kids. How am I going to do it? Like, I'm just like, why am I doing this? Sometimes I'm questioning this myself, honestly speaking, just between women. But yeah, that's just how it is. It's something that comes when you're hiring, right? So these are some of the challenges that you face. Anything else that you?
I think those are the big ones. It's going to be the time that they need off for the children, because as we discussed yesterday, when the kids are sick, the woman stays home. The husband is not.
Yeah, you had to go like for the family, right? Because you were like, I don't see any other option.
Right.
Right. So exactly. In terms of recruitment procedures, how do you think it differs from your counterparts? I believe that you have offices now in the UK, and I know it's still in the start stage, but how do you think it would differ in terms of recruitment practices in Angola, UK, and in the UAE? How can you compare all of these regions?
So those are just kind of shell companies.
Right.
The UK office, there's nobody there.
Okay.
It is just the phones are answered by a shared secretary at one of those cubicle places.
Right.
The same thing for Angola. So Matthew does all the recruitment for them. Now a couple of the senior managers are kind of hand-picking people that maybe they worked with at previous companies. So that is funneling our recruitment over there.
Okay.
As we though go forward, or as we put a few of those packages together, you know, we have to figure out what the UK pays and the benefits and so forth, and that's a huge challenge for us in that growth stage. It's not that easy. We're probably not handling it fantastic, but it's getting done.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
we're just going to force it. Yeah.
Around here. Yeah. Okay. So that's one of the things, right? I know that you said that UK laws. Again, everything changes when it comes to the labor laws, right? When you look at laws in the UAE, how do they differ from the previous places that you've worked at in America, maybe?
Right. The lack of worker protection is probably the biggest one. Yeah, the complete hire and fire at will. Now, America has that. You know, everything is at will. But you will end up paying more for discrimination if you don't show some sort of progressive discipline, right? Yeah. Because if you just call somebody in and say you're fired, if you can't tell me it's performance, then it has to be, in America's mind, it has to be something, age, race, gender.
Job or...
So there's a lot more documentation that goes into it, and counseling. So it's its very own field. And when you become good at it, your value in the market and HR really goes up. So I'm a professional firer, right? And when I've come to these companies, even in the UAE, they're amazed at how kind of easy and nice we kind of handle it, because I do it more with a soft gloves, because I'm used to people getting mad and then going to their attorney. So I mean, other companies here in UAE just be like, you know, here's your letter, and you know, out the door, and you know, we just try to make it
sensitive,
personal, right? So that's the biggest. Pay, you know, the pay is different.
Why is that? Why do you think? What is the justification or reasoning? Do you think that?
Well, I mean, in America you have minimum standards, right? There's a minimum wage law. Yeah. Each state is a little bit different, but for the most part, the very less, if you were going to look at a monthly salary, I think now it's about $8.25 an hour, and there's 2,080 hours in a year. 17,000 dirhams would be the minimum for any job.
Oh. Right. Right. And then if you want to come out and work somewhere else, it has to be worth it. Right. So okay, that's one of the justifications.
Right.
I think a lot of people say these ones, especially Americans, because of taxes. You guys have.
We have taxes.
As well,
yeah,
right?
and I pay those even working over here.
Yeah, probably the only country. I don't know if Canada has the same.
I'm sure they have something. So our taxes will then pay for your children's education in the public schools, the infrastructure, you know, the police and fire, and all of that. So it's and then your pension system.
No, if you're not living there. Yes. Okay, so India has taxes as well. But because we're NRIs, we're non-resident Indians, we don't pay them.
Yeah, we still pay income tax.
That's the one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're not actually using, you go register. I think so Canada is something like you go and register and then you move. we need to figure that out
Yeah.
because we're planning to move together.
We pay after a certain dollar amount, so I think the first 105,000 US is tax-free per person.
Okay.
Right, and then anything over that is usually at your regular tax base.
Okay.
But my husband has his own company, so there's deductions, and you just have to have a good CPA.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay. What about emiratization policies and quotas, and how does ASGC work around these challenges, if you see it as a challenge sometimes?
We have a couple engineers. In fact, one just stopped by yesterday. So we had hired him last year. He had only been with us for 4 months and then got called up to national service. He just completed it, and we're hiring him Cherokee Indian. And we lived in Oklahoma for a while, where the Cherokee Nation was. So when she got out of high school and she started kind of having her drama-filled life and had children and switched husbands and jobs, she got close to, because she had the twin boys, she got $800 a month for food benefits, which is about almost 3,000 dirhams. Right?
Yeah, per kid, right?
No, total.
Total.
Right.
Okay.
But, $3,000
dirhams, pretty good, salary.
Yeah, for milk and juice and eggs and all of that.
Yeah.
Plus, she qualifies for free daycare.
No.
Yeah, yeah. So she could work. Plus, she could get like free college. Plus, she can get all this stuff. And some of them really take advantage of that and do good for themselves. And some, like my stepdaughter, just sat at home. She'd put the kids in daycare, and then she wasn't working, and she would be going to the movies. And you're just going, that really isn't what the program. And she's like, well, it's free money. And we say, it's not free money. It comes from my taxes. Right? And they don't get that circle of benefits. You are going to pay for it. We are paying for it.
Yeah. So that's the kind of circle of benefits. Exactly. It's totally justifiable because, there's always quotas for minorities in any economy.
Right.
Right? And this being their country, of course, it makes all the sense. But then what goes around, and this is exactly, read this paper, I'll give it to you.
Sure.
It has all the stuff that you just told me about, basically.
And what my husband and I like about Dubai is that to be here, you have to work.
Yeah.
It has cut out the whole welfare system that drives us crazy in America. Right? That we watch our friends.
I don't know about but you're right.
I mean, you can get unemployment, and not be looking for a job and get all of these benefits for a very long time. And we see people with fake disabilities and then they'll get on for life. Right here, if you don't have a job, you don't have a work visa, and you have to leave.
You have to go. There's no other way around it. Absolutely. So in terms of the quotas, like what we discussed, I don't want to ask anything. Could you tell me how much it is? Because I'm not getting a clear picture, even online. Like, is it different for different industries, or what is the deal?
I don't know the numbers. Our PRO office handles kind of our quotas. So most of our Emiratis are assigned to the PRO department as data entry clerks. Because we can use that bilingual. We find that many of the Emiratis don't speak English hardly at all, so I need to have them in a department that's the multi-language and heavy on the Arabic, which is my PRO manager. But in the construction field, there's also some requirement of a safety specialist for so many thousand employees, and they know what that is, and then we have to show our recruitment methods if audited by the government, and if we just can't find, because what steps have we gone through before we filled it externally. I do know the visa laws changed within the last couple of years, that certain job titles are now only reserved for Emiratis. Like you couldn't get, and I don't know if it's still working this way now, like you could not get an engineer title of a specific type. If you tried to put it in, the system would flag and say, here are 15 qualified Emiratis that you have to interview first. And after the interview, you would have to justify why they don't have the experience necessary and satisfy the government before you could hire your person.
Wow.
So what the companies will do instead is they'll give a different job title and explain that. And as expats,
There's basically a loophole around.
Yeah, they understand it and say, fine, give me something close, or at the end of the day, it doesn't matter really what your visa says. No, you don't use that on a day-to-day basis.
Very true.
If your business card says this, if I give you a salary certificate that says this, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, a lot of people know that the visa
Mm-hmm.
and the actual job can be different.
Yes.
So this is where backstory is.
Mhm.
I get it.
Right.
Yeah. This was one question that even my supervisors have been. We all sit down and we're like, so you're working at UAE. She's working at Zayed University right now. So I'm like, why do you not know? You have so many Emiratis around you. And she's like, yeah, about the quotas. And even my second supervisor, she's doing research on Emirati entrepreneurs, and she's in the entrepreneurship space. So like, I don't know, I tried finding out, I just can't get the amount right. I think it's different for different industries. WSP said that they don't have to, maybe they're a free zone, and they have a free zone license. I know that we, in Hewitt, we have a free zone license, so we don't have to abide by the localized rate, because there's no sponsor. And
right.
so again, so that's why I'm like,
and a lot of times it will come down to the relationship. So anytime if we have an audit or we have somebody, our PRO manager has been with us for 20 years. He's good, right? He speaks the language, he's well trusted. He gives the right answers, and that is what you need in any company in certain positions.
Yes.
Is not so much the experience. He's not going to take our systems to the next level, but he keeps us out of trouble.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
And
it's this I've heard everywhere else. Everywhere.
He's my guy.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's all about relationships when it comes to the government, and it's how you talk to people and who you know.
And the gentleman that had come in, so he's kind of his second-hand man, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the situation was a former director left. He wants to get in business with somebody else. We still have his visa because he's Syrian, and he's not going to be able to get another one. But he wants an NOC letter saying that he can work in this other company, but it has to be signed by the CEO and the president. We do the due diligence to not just write the letter, but ask our PRO legal advice. If we issue this, does it give any liability to the president? Because they're paying us good money to make sure that we're just not putting things in front of them, because they'll sign it. But, let's protect them.
Right. Very interesting. Okay, let's move on to ethnicity and diversity. How do you think it's managed in ASGC? I know that there's this whole program that has recently come into place. Well, this is what I heard.
From the upper management, yes, they're really looking to kind of
diversify.
When it comes to the juniors, as every company, we have the little mafias.
Yeah.
Right? That's
the boys club, or
well, you'll have the Indians, you'll have the Filipinos. That seems to be the two biggest things. And then you'll have the Egyptians.
Egyptians, of course. Yeah.
Right. So it depends on the manager and what they're hiring for, and what type of teams work well together. Out on the job sites, even I would say, if we have a site secretary, they're usually female. And if there's other females on the site, they don't get along. It's just something about females. And they like to be like the only queen bee.
Okay.
Because occasionally you'll have like a strong site engineer or architect, and the conflicts I always have will be between them and the site engineer or the site secretary. It's just a given. Here in the head office, where it's going to be more diverse, then people just cluster by nationality.
Right.
So when you look at hiring strategies, from an HR standpoint, we don't determine those. We're not into that. As a hiring manager, depending on your scope, you need to have a bit of each, because being in HR, I need Indian dialect, Filipino, Egyptian, so that no matter how I'm trying to communicate to an employee, if I need to, I can grab one of my team and say, can you help me with this conversation? Accounts is the same, I see them, use each other back and forth. So a smart hiring manager
would keep these
Keep
things
that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very interesting because I feel that yes, nationality, where you come from, culture, all of this does play a role in the job person's personality fit, in the complete package, right? Because communication is a big one.
It's very abrasive
It
of how people come across.
Absolutely. I don't know how, and because with this aggressive diversity thing that's going on, I don't know if if it's the right way of doing things, because I don't know. I mean, I'm the outside person, but I would ask these questions that you can't just pick people from different nationalities and just because you want to be diverse.
Right.
I mean, there has to be the thought process that goes behind this, right?
I've talked to Bharat, who's one of my senior HR officers, also been here about 10 years, and from India. And the way he talks to a lot of the junior staff out on the sites, we've had numerous conversations. All the HR managers, like, you have to be a little bit nicer because your voice carries. And personally, him and I have talked, and he's like, but Caroline, this is actually how we talk to each other. And even him to Matthew and Sunny, being Indian, they come across very. It just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And I have finally accepted it, and I tell them to their faces as a group, I said, if that is the way you communicate and you guys aren't taking offense, right?
And you're like, I'm trying to break you.
I know.
That's how we are.
And I said, I'm fine. I said, but you ever talk to me like that? In that tone?
Yeah.
Because you don't switch it over, there'll be issues, right? And you have to be able to adjust for other employees then too, right?
Because that's, especially those who haven't grown up in Dubai. Okay, we're the kids who grew up in Dubai, and we're very culturally aware because we went to school here, university here, and we meet a lot of different people from different places. But we get that as well when we have someone coming in maybe into the PhD cohort, for example, from India. It's a culture shock for me. Like, it's huge, I'm like, listen, there is something called personal space. I actually had this with one of them. Like, okay, I just kept inching backwards and just kept and I was a female. I understand that, but you don't have to get on top of me, man. Just lay off. Okay. And then some of the lingo, and I'm like, that's just not acceptable. You do not say that. Right? So it's the same. Like, I get what you mean, and it's. Imagine, I am Indian, but I grew up here, that's different, but still, I can communicate with you, I can communicate with a lot of other people, but I just know that that's their culture, I am aware of that.
Yes.
And that is so important in this market, in the UAE, because we have such diversity, it's multicultural, it's a melting pot, really. So, that's one of the things that when you're hiring, it's very important because once you're in conflict and once you have this communication miscommunication with employees, you could have all the technical knowledge, but if you can't communicate, it's.
See, in America, it's
a big problem.
It's not a big deal. I mean, I tend to call a lot of people sir and ma'am. Even back there, it's just a term of more of endearment, right?
Yeah.
Here, that is reserved for senior people.
Yeah.
Right? And so when, I learned this in my last job, I call the office boy, good morning, sir, how are you, ma'am, this and that. And somebody, I think, pulled me to the side, and they were very offended. They're like, you don't call them sir, right? They're like the hired help. I'm like, okay, you need to, number one, take it down, right? Yeah. Take off little princess thing.
Absolutely.
I can call whoever I want.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing that, I mean, it's where you work. So because I work with, and I was telling my husband this, that he's like, but I still call my professors doctor, whoever, and it's just more respect. I'm like, I can't call my supervisors anything else but professor, and they're professor so and so because I don't know, that's the kind of relationship, that's the respect that I have for them. But I have my students call me by my first name, but they're mostly Western.
Yeah.
And I accept that. And I'm like, that's how they call their parents by their first name. So okay, I'll just give it to them.
Not where I grew up. It was always Mr. and Mrs., last name.
Yeah, but I've seen people do that as well, and I was like, okay.
And when I got married at 18 to my first husband.
Yeah.
And so my in-laws were always Mr. and Mrs. Wallace when I went over to visit. And after we got married, they're like, call us Mom and Dad. I just couldn't. I mean, you were lucky if I could call them Sue or John, right? Because they're the parents.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I know. Everything is cultural, right? So it's just such a big place. Do you, as part of the ASGC, I know that you have the ASGC Academy as well, that Ashley talked about quite a bit, which was very interesting. Would it be possible to have more people from the ASGC Academy
participate
in this? So that could be like, to get a very interesting... I think they're quite passionate about it, and
they are,
and really enjoy it. So I think that would be very nice for the profile, like the company profile as well. By the way, even the company is going to be. Yeah. We won't take the name. Yeah.
Sure.
So it'll just be Company A and Company B.
We want to be A.
You can be B.
No.
Whatever you want. But yeah, just to maintain the anonymity of employees as well, if they want to discuss anything. Do you guys have any cultural days, or do you do any events as such to manage diversity, to bring all the cultures together?
Yeah, right now we just do the UAE National Day, and then it's up to the employees to kind of celebrate. So if somebody brings in treats for certain things, then it's accepted.
Okay, so that's how. But there's nothing conscious effort on, or are you maybe thinking about it?
I have it on the wish list, and then slowly, do things. Because once the problem with that, like anything else, is if you do it for one, you got to do it for all, and then you have to continue it.
Okay, so what usually organizations do is that they have one day where they have a cultural day where everyone can get to dress in their ethnic wear and then bring food and have a little party in the office.
Oh, sure.
So everyone's happy.
Right, I know.
One day. One day.
Yeah,
exactly. So maybe you can think of that. But again, that's just me giving suggestions. Right. It doesn't have to be that way. You know it better, right? You know how things work here. Okay. Do you have different contracts or privileges usually for people coming from different places with backgrounds, etc.?
99.9% of our offer letters are all the same. There has been one or two small little things, like maybe they'll get a business class ticket outside the policy or that, but no.
But no, the contracts as such are the same.
Yeah. For
all, maybe locals might be different. But
correct, but yeah, for me versus an American versus a British versus
usually they're the same. Okay. All right. Now, with the previous company that I interviewed, referrals and networking recruitment was big, so much so that it was cheaper to actually recruit internally through references, and they would pay a successful recruitment the same, between 2,000 to 10,000. Do you have any such policies here?
Not an official policy. We typically won't look at a referral CV unless it comes from a senior person. We don't encourage really staff to bring us CVs because everybody knows 10 to 15 people.
Then they'll always have someone or the other.
Right, and from an HR standpoint, I don't want all their friends and family here. Yeah. So Matthew really does a better job of just picking out and finding outside.
Okay. So you don't encourage that here?
Not as much.
Not as much. Okay. Because I thought this was an industry thing from the previous company that I interviewed with. They actually said that because we know so many people in the industry, it's just easier to pick up and work with people that we know are good
Right.
in terms of, and it just works out.
Yeah, but you're taking that person's word that the person is good,
Yes.
right? So that's why we're really only taking that senior opinion.
Okay. Makes sense, actually. Yeah.
Otherwise, if you look at a junior person and you're like, well, you're referring this person and your work is marginal, it might be a fantastic person, but
so you avoid that.
Mhm.
Okay, that's, again, different styles
Yeah.
of management. It's very interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. Have you come across a time when a job was created to hire a particular candidate? This usually happens in HR when it's a strategic role or someone who's on top.
Yeah,
Can you do that?
not as much as we used to.
Okay.
The last one was Miss Daisy, who's out there. So she worked at a company that our CEO did a lot of business with.
Right.
So she was like the office manager.
Okay.
That company was going out of business. He just liked her whenever he interacted, so he brought the CV and said, bring her on board. Right? So then the questions were, where? And we didn't have a role. So I knew that some of my department heads that are smaller was looking for a part-time admin person. I need somebody for 20%, 20%, 20%.
Okay.
So I talked to them again and said, if I bring in this person, it's a shared resource, let's give it a try. I talked to her during the interview. She was like, 4 bosses. I'm like, I know, but these are good directors. I will vouch that they're not going to be like the screaming ones and interdepartment fights. And so far it's worked out. I think she's been here 8 months, and yeah, there's some chaotic days. But yeah, you do that. The family members, there's so many Egyptians that want to come to Dubai. So we do tend to take a lot of like engineers that way. That it just comes in and say, find a place. Interns are the same. Interns freaking drive me crazy.
I would think so.
Yeah, they
drive me crazy.
They need some place for 3 months.
Yeah.
Their father knows the president. Would you just, bring him on board? They need the experience, and I've yet to find a good one that's come through there. We had one from HR last summer, which was just a potato. And he knew by the end of it, I just couldn't stand to look at him.
Oh my God, that's how bad.
Yeah.
So that's what happens usually. That's why I think you guys are not for hiring proper from.
Yeah.
But even from the senior management, you can get.
Yeah.
So these people, yeah, true. So do you think there is scope for nepotism because it's a family-owned business and there's issues of there's not issues, but there are ideas of trust and other things that how do you call it, a relationship building, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there has to be a good faith effort. Sometimes
Good faith, yeah.
we do the courtesy interviews is what I call them.
Okay.
Right? And you bring them in your interview, and then sometimes if you just can't place them, at least, you brought them in and you had tea and said, I don't have anything right now. The market's very tight, and they understand that. And we hire based on project needs, and until we start a new project, we're not hiring any additional. Right?
So you politely take it out.
Yeah.
But you have to do that.
And we'll do that at a senior level, like with myself. Right? If it's a candidate, even if it's a very junior position, I'll meet them, or Miss Miriam. We don't even make Matthew do that, just to make them seem like they got to the top of the
interview.
Right? And Matthew uses. We have a very good working relationship to say, if you just need that white face in front of a candidate to say, you're important, drag me out. Right?
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Sometimes that works.
It works a lot.
I think a lot of the things work this way because that's the only way to deal with certain things. And I've come to learn that. And I tell this to my students as well. Don't trust the textbook because the way that things work are quite different, especially when it comes to, because human behavior is unpredictable, only to a certain extent when you talk about psychology and organizational behavior, right? Like, you're in a bad mood tomorrow.
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, you're bipolar or whatever. Things change completely.
Sure.
So, so how you deal with things is like you take it as they come, and that's with a lot of things. You can't really say these are the rules that we need to follow.
Yeah.
You wing it. And like you said, it works most of the time.
It really does.
So that's great. I don't know if I asked you this, but how did you get this job? Like, how did you come to the UAE? And wait, you did tell me, we did talk about it.
A little bit.
A little bit about, you know, you just flew here and then you just...
So we had some friends. He was a senior vice president at Johnson Controls.
Okay.
And he had always had international assignments. Dubai had always been on my husband's and our bucket list.
Oh.
But it always looked very expensive. It's the Middle East. You're just not going to go there by yourself.
Yeah.
So once we saw that he got stationed over here, you know, we called him up. He put us up in his apartment, and we were here for 10 days, and something clicked, right? So we went home and we talked it over, and we said, you know, let's just try it. You know, I only had to quit my job since he works for himself, so we have that income buffer. We left the house. I mean, everything is set up, so if it didn't work out, we have something to fall back on. Found my first position after a couple months, you know, figured out the system, but it wasn't working for me.
Right.
After the 6 months, I flew home for 3 months in the summer, regrouped. We said, do we want to do it again? I'm like, yeah, there was still so much. You know, I feel like we didn't give it the full thing. Came back and had my CV out there, and Matthew just happened to call, you know. They were looking for an HR manager, and they were looking for somebody with construction experience.
Okay.
That's what I had. Yeah. And then I clicked with Miss Miriam in the interview. You know, I interview like this. You know, very relaxed and chatty, and you know, if that works for you, that's great. There are many companies that are like, they want that strong, stern HR manager that's going to.
But HR is supposed to be warm and nice.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent.
Right.
Like you said, nice.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Right. I want to go into some of the questions that you had as well to get your employee perspective, but I also want to ask about your previous job. I think you mentioned that it was Azizi Development. How was that experience, and how's that different from here?
They were also a family-owned business.
Yes.
The two sons, the CEO and the executive vice president, were younger, so they were like 25 and 23, and absolute nightmare to work for.
Oh wow!
Right, and they were growing. They wanted to like triple their staff. They had no policies. They didn't have visa quotas. So I had 80 people out of 300 without visas. No way of getting them. Stressed out every day. People in my office just screaming at me, and I just would be sitting there like, there's literally nothing I can do. Right? We explained this to you, and I was just.
Oh my God.
And I can't work on the situation because you're just sitting here screaming, and then he would leave, and then the next one would come in, and it was just all day.
What?
Yeah, it was the worst thing ever. And that was also their management style. It's beyond managed by fear. And since it's a sales agency,
very autocratic.
If you don't make your quota, I'd be firing people the next month, even if they were the superstar the month before. And the employees are like, you know, what is this? And the difficulty then being the American is they thought I would bring the American policies. The employees think I don't have that authority.
Authority, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Just like that's why we don't get Christmas off here. And everybody is like, Caroline, why don't we get Christmas? You celebrate Christmas. Okay, it is not my company.
I wish, but no. Exactly, right?
Yeah, so there's this real disconnect with the employees and
expectations and what the reality is. I can see that,
So, but I really learned from that, and I had some good mentors of some of the senior staff who you know, wished that I would have stayed and tried longer. But instead, I've stayed in contact with them, and I've taken their experience and those who have been here in the UAE, and I've learned to just vent and approach things differently.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a paid internship for me, right, to be successful at this position. Because if I would have still came here first, I wouldn't have succeeded here either.
True. That's how you learn, right? On the job, especially in this area, in this part of the world, and in HR. So that was really important for me to see that, how bad yeah, or whatever, right? It could have been very good experience, but I just, again, I wanted to know the backstory as well.
And I think of the same staff, like the T-boys and the office boys there had the same horrific experience, and then I see these T-boys and how nice and calm and regular working hours, and when they complain, you get that UAE attitude. You know what? If you don't like it here, you can go find another job. And let me tell you, it is really good here.
Yeah, true.
Right? So that's where the attitudes, I find, come in. Where in America, most of the jobs are going to be very similar.
Yes.
Right? There'll be stresses and pros and cons, but it's not this wild influx.
It's really wild. Like I said, right? I mean, 2 companies is not enough to generalize like the industry or anything. I mean, I'm not even from construction. I just happen to get access to construction companies, but it's just that it's too huge, man. Like there has to be like a lot of research, and again, qualitative. So it's just everyone's opinions will change. And their experiences will change, and where you're coming from. Okay. In terms of the downsizing part of the question that you asked me, what are your views on that?
I think mine are going to be more biased because I see the meetings, right? So I don't perceive them as fair.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone's
So it's not. I'm hoping that the staff feels a little bit differently because of how we present it or how we look at it. But like the situation today is, I'm having to remove a couple of the T-boys, and we've already, hired the replacements over the past couple of days. Management has decided that they would like females. Okay, nothing to do with their performance. Nothing I can tell these people. I'm ruining their lives and their jobs, and they have families. Besides, management today would like a girl. Right?
Okay, no comment. I know, that's just, I mean, what's the reasoning behind it, right?
Yeah, and that's the reason. And to them, that is a perfectly valid reason.
That's the thing. See, sometimes there are inequalities, but the reasons and justifications that come along with it, like we talked about the glass ceiling, okay? No one said that it was right because everyone's all about equality these days. But then, if you think about it, maybe the women don't want to do it. Like, why are you trying to make it sound like a bad thing? Maybe, they themselves don't want it or whatever. But that's the thing, like, what's the reasoning here? So it makes makes sense that you're not, like, on board with that. I get it, okay, so in terms of the learning and development, career progression, these are your questions I'm going to ask you. What are your views on career progression? Do you think that you have a chance of growing in this organization to the next level?
From what I've seen so far, since HR doesn't really have a hand in it because we just don't have the staff and that experience, unless I take it on with everything else, which we're working on, it's up to the employee to figure out what they want to do and to
self-drive.
Make some recommendations. Occasionally we'll put together a class that a department head will ask. They want the PMP, which is
project management professional.
Right. But then we let the directors pick which employees. There's not like an HR criteria, or we don't offer it to everyone.
Okay.
Last year I asked Marae, because she was a new joiner out of university, who we were asked to hire, and she's turned it. We were asked to hire, right? And she has done well, but she came with no experience, with no HR degree, right? So compare her to anybody in HR is a huge learning curve. So as part of her KPIs last year, I told her, I need you to find a HR seminar or a class, 2 to 3 days here in the UAE. You don't get to go to Las Vegas, even though she brought me back one from Las Vegas. And
but I hats off to you, man. That was a lot. And now I know what he was talking about. She was like,
just leave her alone. I know, Ashley says
No, she was like really glad you're back.
But even with those direct guidelines, she wanted like me to pick out the class. I'm like, I need you, if you want to be in HR, to tell me, do you want to become a recruiter? I mean, HR is so broad.
Broad learning, what do you want? Yeah.
And you don't get that. When I went to the front desk around that same time, I said, okay, we are offering it up. You can put on your annual review what class you want to take. Do you want to take another Excel, PowerPoint, learn a new skill? They're like, no, we're fine. Okay.
They're passing up on training and development.
And you're going to get a lot of that. And I said, okay, let me tell you, if you don't enhance your skill, you won't be here, right? And there's a lot of cluelessness. So your point yesterday that people expect to be told, it's more of that industry here.
Yeah. I see that as well. And then these questions are really good. When I went through them, they were really good.
And you can't hint. You have to say it very direct, too.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I told my front desk, I said, management is looking at staffing levels, knowing that today I was going to be letting people go. I said, so the front desk, again, is the first thing that people see. Clean it up, look sharp. This is a warning, right? And today he came in a suit and a tie. Which you'll only see him in a suit and a tie like 4 times a year, right? So they know me also enough now. They know Joking Caroline. Joking Caroline's here 99% of the time. But when I give out these soft hints that, they're looking to reduce staff, and if you don't look the part and act the part, then I can't save you, right? Because these aren't my decisions.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can do about it other than one.
Yeah,
exactly. So, do you believe about the fairly distributed, the favoritism part, the question that you asked?
I do. I think, we allow the sites to really dictate to us terminations, progressions. We don't get involved. The CEO would like to see HR get more involved, and so we're trying to develop those systems, but then that will also take some time to develop the relationships with the sites to say,
how does that work?
Yeah, keep us involved and so forth. I mean, we have certain controls. Like this past week, since it's middle of August, some of the departments want a few promotions within their departments.
Right.
And we're trying to wait now to the end of the year when reviews are being done. We're winning, 90% of those battles. And Miss Miriam looks to me to kind of be the no person, which I'm fine, and everybody knows that's my role. But then I allow her, it's not nice, I don't allow her. I support her to do an occasional exception so that she can keep that goodwill with the directors, and we still get that bargaining tool,
right? In terms of when you asked about the favorite employees given opportunities, do you think that exists?
Yes. I know that while I was gone in July, they offered another one of those PMP classes. And the feedback I got from one of the guys that set it up is they sent the invite to all the project directors. They were supposed to distribute it to their teams and find out who was interested. I learned after the fact only one project director responded. He didn't even do that. He just picked. And we were not aware of that until now. Right, because everybody has their contacts and their people that will talk to them, and I just happened to hear that from my guy, and I took that to Miriam, and she wasn't aware. I said, okay, just whatever I know, right? And it doesn't make it right or not. I'm just telling you the office gossip. And a lot of times she's like, well, that's not true and that's not true. I'm not saying it's true, Miriam. I'm saying this is what the employees are saying. Right. And that has.
And you as HR have to go through the informal grapevine or networks to find out what really is going on, because there's this facade and then there's usually a lot of the times there is some politics or some.
If you've ever heard the quote, perception is reality, that is the most truest thing you can ever have at a job.
Anywhere. I tell my students this, I'm like, because I teach them about politics and power and organizational behavior, and I'm like, listen, don't listen to this. Don't learn this.
Right.
for the exam, yes.
Yeah.
But don't keep this in mind when you go to work. Okay, because it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
You roll with it. You don't jump from the pan into the fire.
Yeah.
But you have to, you have to understand, observe what you said yesterday. Exactly that. Like, stay back and observe. It's the first day of university. You just take it all in. You take a step back. You don't need to come out and expose yourself to see what's going on. And that's what happens, like, in any workplace, So it's really how people understand that and how fast they learn the ropes, basically.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. I think about skill set, I think this is the same thing that you talked about, the PMP course, and how people are reluctant to take things.
At least what I have
forward,
found
right?
with my team now, the operations team that are more technical, I think there would be a different mindset that they want to, they know that their certifications will help them in their career.
Yeah.
When you get to the admin side, they're like, no biggie.
Right. Yeah. In terms of communication, I didn't quite get like exactly what you want me to ask, so I haven't really asked this question yet. So do employees feel their managers have the authority necessary, or will conflicting messages be sent? Yeah. What do you mean by this exactly? Like, it's good to clarify with you.
Yeah.
What I need to ask.
So like our new CFO, who's been here 3 or 4 months, so when I was on leave, I found out he's got a couple trainees, and they both had some family emergencies and went back home. So he had sent an email to payroll saying, I want to pay them for their full time, because it's compassion leave and they just missed a couple days and they make a very low salary. Okay, and it got paid. When I came back, because the employees were talking, everybody talks about everything, right? One had missed 8 days and one had missed 13. Okay, that's more than a couple days.
Yeah.
Plus they're a trainee, they're not employees, so therefore they don't get compassion leave.
Right.
And
that's not part of the contract, is it?
And he doesn't get to make those decisions of unpaid days off as a department head. Those have to go to HR.
Okay.
Right? So when he gets back, I'll have to talk to him, and then through the gossip, I'm hearing that he's authorized maybe some work at home for different employees. Okay, we don't have those programs. So as HR, we're going to have to say you don't have that authority. It's going to have to back down, and it's probably going to create a little bit of headache within the department. Whereas if you were in other industries, you would have that flexibility.
Yeah.
And so the employees here know how the politics works. If a department head is close with the president, things can get overturned.
Right.
If another department head is saying you're going to do this, then you just take that to your manager, and it goes up to the manager, and then all of a sudden you don't have to do it.
Got it. Yeah.
And I'm a little curious to see, what if there's a way to phrase it.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay. Now I understand. Because it was just like, okay, what sense of communication between, is it just the manager-subordinate relationship that you're talking about, or the general flow of information?
Yeah.
The grapevine, essentially. Okay. Super. Basically, I think that's